Let's get right into it. In Canadian federal politics, the Canucks are represented by two separate yet unequal groups. The globalists who sold out and the opposition trying to salvage a country. These are their stories.
Mr. Chair, and thank you, Canada. One of my towns back in the riding that I represent sent me a concern that they had. They received a check for Canada Post Utilities through UPS via a company in Utah. Now, I'm just curious, is that a standard practice that you guys do for paying utility bills to towns that lease out buildings to Canada Post?
I'm afraid, actually, I don't have any details on that. I'd be happy to take that away and look into it, but I'm not familiar with that situation.
Okay, the company is Conservice out of Utah, and they're apparently a third-party utility payment system. And yeah, I just found it really ironic that Canada Post would be sending payment through UPS, through an American service to Canada for goods for a Crown Corporation to another level of government. I just found that quite ironic.
Okay, I made a note of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, when it comes to rural post offices, now we've heard that lifting the moratorium will not affect rural areas, but what is Canada Post doing to make sure that rural post offices will still remain open?
So, as was announced in September of last year, the minister has provided some direction to us in terms of where we can lessen regulatory and policy burden, one of them being the rural moratorium, as you called out. From our postal network, the rural moratorium was put in place in 1994, and it was meant to protect rural post offices at the time, but it's remained unchanged for over 3 decades. And since that time, the country has shifted from villages that have become towns, towns that are cities, cities that have moved into full-grown sort of areas, and the needs of Canadians have changed. So our proposed plan that is currently still in discussion with the government does include modernization of our post offices to better reflect where Canadians live and shop. We understand, of course, that how important it is the rural, remote, and Indigenous communities play. And modernization will have to truly prioritize and protect access to vital services in these areas. As I mentioned, this is part of the proposed plan that we've submitted to the government and we're in discussion with, but we won't be able to share final details of that until it's fully endorsed and approved.
Okay, so while the moratorium was in place, though, like there were over 500 rural post offices that did close. Now, I do recognize that part of the lifting of this moratorium is, yeah, like you said, for places where they've changed from a village all the way up to a city, and that, of course, I understand the reasons why you're doing that. However, I'm looking more at some of the towns who are very rural and remote, who rely on postal service for sending in, say, water samples on a weekly basis to make sure that their residents are drinking clean water. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of concern from folks that it's those kind of post offices that are going to end up on the chart. I'm wondering if you can just provide to this committee assurances that your plan actually will ensure that places like the town of Vanguard, for example, will not lose, or even the village of Neville will not lose their post offices because of a strategy like this.
So a significant part of our transformation plan, once it's endorsed and approved by the government, would be in part of consultations with those municipalities that we would be engaging with, whether that be from a retail network or community mailboxes. So that has to be taken into clear consideration in terms of each one of the municipalities, the services that the post offices offer, and the needs of the community. So consultation is at the forefront of everything that would be part of our transformation plan, to ensure that we're making sure that we are looking at it from an approach that fits the community. It can't be one size fits all. Each community is too unique to look at it in such a way.
Has the minister given you a very clear definition of what rural means for the sake of determining what a rural post office would be?
From my perspective, from my position, I have not been engaging with those specific conversations, so I can't comment as to whether or not they've given us a specific definition. It's better to ask that question directly to them.
Okay, well, we're still waiting for confirmation of when he'll show up to this committee again. But what does Canada Post, I guess, then for you guys then? Do you have your own definition that you utilize when you are referring to something as rural?
So the definition, as far as I understand from my current point of view, really does root itself back into the rural moratorium, which is partly why it needs to be relooked at as it regards to our statistical data for Canada, as opposed to sort of where the boundaries were drawn in 1994.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for that. 30 seconds? Okay. Just wondering if you could just... do you have any specific details of your plan for keeping rural post offices open? Do you have any information on that you could table with this committee just to provide some further assurances, or just wondering if there's any information that you'd like to share further to this committee? If so, you could send that as a brief.
Yeah, at this time, though, our transformation plan hasn't been approved, so we still continue to work with the government to be able to make sure it's there. But I do want to reassure this committee that, of course, we do recognize the vital role that rural and remote communities play, and will be part of how we approach this transformation very carefully from a municipal perspective.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll go to Mr. Gasparo, but before we do, Ms. Chisholm, we do have a policy within the committee. Any information we request, we require back within 21 days, calendar days.
Thank you for letting me know.
As per the Kaplan report, Canada Post is deemed to be in an existential crisis and is effectively insolvent. Page 55 of the report states that, quote, the notion that the January 2025 $1 billion plus loan, effectively a lifeline, will be repaid requires the complete suspension of disbelief, unquote. Now that another loan has been issued, what confidence can Canadians reasonably have that either of the loans will be repaid? Do you have any timelines of when the loan is going to be repaid? How long will it take to repay the $2 billion? And can you table the loan agreement with this committee?
Thank you for the question. So yes, Canada Post as well as CUPW did participate, of course, in the Industrial Inquiry Commission that was led by William Kaplan in 2025. We did absolutely welcome the findings that came from the Kaplan report as it highlighted into our financial situation and the dire need to make changes to Canada Post to allow us to be able to transform. Following just actually while the Kaplan Commission was going on, the first announcement of the $1.1 billion cash injection was brought forward in January of 2025. That, of course, was meant to sustain the corporation until the end of the fiscal year, March 31st, 2026. Unfortunately, due to the ongoing labor uncertainty in 2025 and the impacts on its revenue, a secondary announcement was just made regarding an additional access to up to $1.01 billion was just made. As you know, we have stated, as well as the minister has stated, these are repayable loans where we as a corporation do not want to continue to be reliant on taxpayer funding and be supported by taxpayer funding. We do need to return to financial sustainability, which is of course part of our mandate, before we're able to do that. I am not privy to the details of both of those cash injections that have come through, and cannot speak to the terms in which there would be repayment of them.
Okay. Can you table the loan agreement with this committee?
I can certainly take it away and ask my colleagues and ask them that. I just don't have the details. I'm sorry.
Okay. So what are you doing differently that is going to make Canada Post sustainable or profitable, if I could go as far as thinking that? And what is or when is the transformational plan being implemented? It's been months and we're all waiting. When are the community mailboxes being rolled out as per the new plan? Or is that the new plan?
So as I mentioned earlier, the announcement in September from our minister with respect to areas that they would lessen the regulatory and policy items that have been in place for some time that directly aligned with the Kaplan report in terms of community mailboxes, of course, our retail network, delivery standards for letter mail, the rate setting process for regulated letter mail that I mentioned in my opening statements. All of those are components of the transformation plan that were submitted to the government last year as per requested. We continue to have conversations with the government regarding the specifics of the plan and the details that are in there. We do not have a timeline at this point because it is not yet approved with respect to when we would commence the transformation initiatives. We need to make sure that the transformation plan is approved by the government, and we need to make sure that we're then starting the announcement and any kind of consultation processes with the communities. So I do not have a timeline to share with you because that's still part of discussions in the transformation plan overall.
Can you share those discussions with us? Because we're kind of curious as to what exactly is holding up the implementation of this plan. And the minister has had it, as you just pointed out, for several months.
So I'm the Vice President of Product Management and Customer Experience. I am not privy to those direct conversations. So I could not tell you what is being asked or what details are being asked for clarification from from our plan. I'm just not privy to those conversations.
So thank you for those answers. I guess I would just register my disappointment for sure with the fact that Minister Lightbound is refusing to appear before committee to defend the supplementary estimates. I would also register that it I think smacks in the face of parliamentary procedure to have a minister appear on supplementary estimates after they've been deemed reported. I think we would like to have the opportunity to question minister prior to, and so this is unacceptable, really, to the parliamentarians around this table, that we have ministers refusing to come in a timely manner to defend the estimates. Thanks.
Yep. Yes. No. We have Ms. Gaudreau, then yourself. But Ms. Crisson, we're going to excuse you. We'll let you go. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
No. To your point, I agree regarding Minister Lightbound, which is why, I'm sorry, let me finish, please, and then it's Ms. Gaudreau, then yourself. I agree, which is why the clerk and I reached out to make any time available to March. The clerk and I were meeting yesterday, and we've actually we'll reach out again to the President of the Treasury Board to see if he can come. I think we have time on the 12th and 14th. We will reach, the 10th. We'll reach out to try and find time to see if he will shift his appearance before they're actually deemed reported. Madame Gaudreau, and then Ms. Cleed.
Oui, Monsieur le Président, je voulais simplement...
Yes, Mr. Chair. I would simply like to reiterate pretty much what we have just experienced here, being that there has been a conclusion, let's say, about the blind and free library delivery services, and then we receive our witness before us here. That's all very fine and good, but regarding the budget and the estimates, of course, one doesn't meet with someone after it's in and accepted. So, when we ask, of course, for officials and ministers to come in person, but if they're truly unavailable in person, they could be heard by video conference. The aim is to really be able to speak to them before the ultimate date.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to let everybody know that the reason why Minister Lightbound is not available to come to committee is because he is having a new baby and he's on paternity leave. It's not that he's refused to attend. I know for a fact, and I've had many conversations with the minister, that he is very, very attentive to what this committee has to say and what this committee has to contribute. He is not refusing. he just is otherwise occupied. I know that the president of the Treasury Board is more than willing and able to come and attend and answer any questions of the committee. And I'm more than happy to connect with Minister Lightbound to see if a virtual option is available or if there's any other ways that we can engage. But I do appreciate if we can all stop saying that the minister refused to attend, because that's not the case at all.
Well, it would be wonderful if the President of the Treasury Board would reconsider his date to make it earlier, but as I said, the clerk is already on that. Regard to the minister, whatever term you wish to use, he's not attending to defend the estimates. There is $1 billion just in Canada Post. We heard today repeatedly, well, there's no real plan on actually addressing it. There's lots of others. So it'd be wonderful if he is able to attend by virtual for 1 hour.
Thank you, Chair. I think that there is a difference. When we accuse somebody of refusing, that to me and to anybody that's listening or paying attention to what's happening in committee, it shows that they are actively not wanting to come to this committee. In this instance, the minister refused to attend. It is that he is otherwise preoccupied with his family and with his new baby, and I would appreciate if we do be a little bit more careful with the language that we use and what we accuse our ministers of doing or not doing. I'm sure that they are all trying their level best, and quite frankly, I'm not in any position to defend anybody. I just want to make sure that we are being accurate in how we portray people and their intentions.
Your point is taken, and I think it's up to the committee to decide what language or what interpretation they will of Minister Lightbound's inability to join us. But we take your point, Ms. Block, and then we'll suspend. Once we're done, we'll suspend quickly, bring in our new witnesses, and I think we have to do a sound check on someone as well.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I would have hoped that information would have been provided to the clerk and to the chair. So that we, not that we need to know all the personal information of someone, but that would have explained a lot. In this instance, is someone taking on the responsibilities of the Minister for PSPC while he is on paternity leave? Just a question. I know it happens when other ministers take maternity leave, so wondering if this is a prolonged period of time and if that's been given any thought.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll get back. Ms. Rochford, then we'll suspend. Go ahead.
Oh, just for the record, myself, I am satisfied that the minister appeared, I think, twice and gave very...
But this is on the supplements, something completely different.
Nonetheless, he was present and gave us an opportunity to question him on so many issues and options that might have evolved, and so I'm satisfied with that excellent presentations that he's made. Thank you.
Thanks. I am not satisfied. There's $1 billion in Canada Post. We've heard Canada Post's inability to send anyone who can provide any responses, and it's also traditional ministers. It's part of Parliament tradition. Ministers show up to defend their estimates. We understand Ms. Khalid will reach out to see if we can get at least 1 hour virtual, which I think will satisfy our requirements, but appreciate feedback. Go ahead.
Say on the record that the minister has appeared 3 times in the past 2 months.
I would also just like to put on the record he has not appeared for the Sup-Bs either, so he has avoided what the parliamentary tradition of this place actually is.
Now we're getting into argument back and forth. I think our points have been made. We're going to suspend for about 5 minutes. We will do a test for one of our witnesses, and then we will reconvene. 5 minutes, please.
I'm always been very intrigued by the Titan submersible, so I mean I look forward to reading the report when that one is finished, because that's something that really I think drew the national and international media attention for sure. So, but I don't want to ask you any questions specific to that one. I do have a few questions on short line railways. I have quite a few short lines that operate in my riding, and I asked them a couple of them separately about issues that were impacting them that would be relevant maybe to this meeting. And one of the things that they both came up with unprompted was the issue around the watch lists and how short line rails are viewed and treated the same as the Class 1 railways. So given that the short lines operate at slower speeds and quite often with significantly shorter and smaller trains, just wondering, is there any way for Transport Canada or for you guys to maybe acknowledge the difference between the short lines and the Class 1 railways?
So in the case of rail investigations, the vast majority of the investigations that we conduct involve, as you mentioned, the Class 1 railways. So the short lines are a very small proportion of the investigative work that we do. However, when we develop the watch list, currently the only rail-specific issue that is on our watch list is the issue of crews not following signal indications. So we look at the overall risk, which is why, and this risk, we've identified it for the rail sector. So we've decided not to exclude short line and just really point to the overall risk. But when we do take another look at the watch list in the near future, it could be something to think about for sure.
Yeah, maybe just something to consider. And I think just generally talking about the public safety issues that impact the Class 1s, it definitely has an impact on the short line guys. And sometimes it makes it a little bit harder, more onerous for them to do their job because they just don't operate at the same capacity. But also they are reinvesting a significant, as a percentage, I guess, significantly more back into the track to make sure that they have a high quality track to operate on, and even at that, they're still operating at lesser speeds. Just kind of wondering, when you work on the watch list recommendations, do you take the consideration of trying to avoid any unintended consequences or perhaps maybe over-regulation in a sense, just, finding that right balance, I guess, right? I mean, obviously, there's regulation that's required, but how do we find that right balance of not being too onerous in our regulations? What does that look like for you?
It's tricky work for sure to find the right balance, as you mentioned. So the watch list is really the key safety issues that need to be addressed to make Canada's transportation system even safer. And it is really a combination of recommendations that we have issued throughout the years, as well as data from our investigations and feedback we are receiving when we discuss with industry stakeholders. So we collect all of that, and then we identify the key issues. And so when we develop the watch list, it's really we really try to strike the right language to identify the issue without sending too alarmist, because our goal is really to make these issues actionable. We want them to be action in the future so that change can be advanced, and for that, we have to strike the right balance for sure.
Okay, thank you for that. When it comes, you mentioned, excuse me, in your opening remarks, the lean and efficient nature of your department, how you operate. Thank you very much for being efficient with taxpayers' dollars. But when it comes to the CERs, I'm just wondering, is there any risk of your department having funding cut or maybe some positions lost due to the comprehensive expenditure review?
Sure, I can take that. Thank you for the question. Under SIR, we advanced a number of initiatives that we feel are just working smarter, and that's basically, using new AI to become more efficient and stuff on our operational side. Right now, we do feel that we'll be able to improve our service, make our inspections more efficient, and investigations more efficient. However, we don't see that we'll have to lose any technical capacity in the future.
Okay, so you guys are not going to be receiving any cuts to funding or to staff at this point in time?
We are receiving cuts, and it's potential that in the future we may reduce administratively on internal services, but right now we don't foresee it.
Okay, are there any potential concerns, though, about maintaining transportation safety as it pertains to that, though, or?
So, our mandate, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, is really to conduct investigations, identify safety deficiencies, and make recommendations. And we are able to fulfill our mandate without any issues. So as James mentioned, we are faced with some cuts as part of the SIR exercise. These cuts do not compromise our mandate. We will be able to fulfill our mandate with these cuts. Right now, we're really focusing on finding efficiencies, managing vacant positions, and potentially attrition as well. So it's really what we're focusing on to meet these cuts as part of SIR.
We have seen some recurring issues that you've identified: fatigue, airport runway incursions, commercial fishing vessels stability, rail grade crossing collisions, which is an issue that you've identified, that we have identified decades ago, and collisions still keep happening. So when the same contributing factors appear across multiple investigations year after year, what does that tell you about implementation or the oversight gaps?
Conduct an investigation, our goal is to identify what happened, but more importantly, why it happened. And then from that, we can identify the safety deficiencies, which is what went wrong, and make recommendations to improve transportation safety. When we issue a recommendation, most of the recommendations that we issue are targeted at Transport Canada, so the Department of Transport. We can issue recommendations to other entities, but in practice, most of them are addressed at Transport Canada. And we follow up with the department every year to make sure that that action is being taken. And all of these assessments of our recommendations are made public. So it is our way to keep the pressure on and make sure that the change is happening and that these deficiencies are fixed.
Is the compliance voluntary, or is there any consequences for them not complying? Because, for instance, the rail grade crossing collisions that take many lives every year, that's been going on for over 20 years that you made those, or your department has made those recommendations. Why is it still happening? Who is dropping the ball?
We don't have the power to force change. We can only identify the issues and then make recommendations for them to improve. After that, the implementation of recommendations is dependent on who the recommendation was targeted to. As I mentioned, most of the recommendations we issue are targeted at Transport Canada, and we do follow up with them every year.
Would it be worth our while to give you those legislative changes so that you can enforce and demand accountability?
Well, right now, our mandate to do these investigations ensures that we are independent, and being independent is essential to our mandate because it allows us to look at the big picture. And look at the work of the regulator, look at the work of all the other entities in an independent manner. And this is why we are able to sometimes be critical of the implementation of some safety measures when it's not going at the speed that we wish it was going at. So I would say that right now our mandate is adequate for our purposes, which is to conduct independent investigations and then make recommendations.
But you have many recommendations that are still sitting on the shelves that have not been implemented. Roughly, there's 81 recommendations that have not been implemented since 1990. Why? Why have they not been executed or implemented and finished?
Yeah. So there can be many reasons. As I mentioned earlier, so these 81 recommendations, 44 are in air, 23 in marine, 14 in rail. Some of them are very recent. For instance, in marine, we have 3 recommendations that are less than a year old. So, of course, for these recommendations, they are too recent for change to be put into place. But it is true that some recommendations are very old. We have 6 recommendations in air that are more than 20 years old, for example. And so for these recommendations, oftentimes the issue is that our assessment of the risks and of the way to resolve the safety deficiency is different than the assessment of the Department of Transport. So we have a different perspective on the issue and how to fix it. In some cases, we're also waiting for regulatory amendments. And as we all know, the regulatory amendment process can take time. So in some cases, we have been waiting, year after year for these regulatory changes to be implemented.
Would it be fair for me to say that the folks that should be accountable to Canadians are not being accountable and not being responsible in implementing these recommendations that you have put forth?
As I mentioned, we all of our recommendations assessments are made public. So this is already really to identify the risks and to keep the pressure on the regulators, on the stakeholders to make sure that change is happening.
It appears the pressure is not working. Sorry, Chair. Thank you.
Be following up on some of the questions just previously asked. In 2023, there was a draft report leak from International Civil Aviation Organization, which found multiple lapses in Transport Canada's aviation safety policies. In the audit, as you mentioned, Transportation Safety Board scored an 83%. However, on aircraft operations, Canada scored just 23%. And 67% in personnel training and licensing. What do these numbers say about the state of Transport Canada and the well-being of Canadians when we are provided shockingly terrifying figures like that?
So we, for our part, we took part of the audit that, was about the TSB. So we were not involved in the other parts of the audit. So, I'm not aware of how things unfolded when the ICAO inspectors went to Transport Canada. So I can't really comment on that. But I know for certain that Transport Canada has a number of action items that they are following up on to try to fix the issues that were identified as part of this audit.
Thank you. Among the findings they found to be unsatisfactory were that Transport Canada does not properly monitor aviation companies' fatigue management systems, which are rules that dictate pilots' required rest periods. Have you raised this as an issue as the Transportation Safety Board?
Well, fatigue has been an issue on our watch list for a long time. We have a number of recommendations that are related to fatigue. It is a multimodal issue, which means that it's not only for air, it's also for marine and rail as well. And yeah, definitely, it's been on our radar for a while, and it still is, and probably will be for the near future. Yeah.
Thank you. Other issues in the audit they found were Transport Canada allows holders of foreign private pilot licenses to convert them to Canadian permits without verifying the license with the foreign authority. That Transport Canada has no formal way of ensuring air traffic controller NAV Canada continuously assesses its shortage of staff and its capacity to handle aircraft, and that pilots and mechanics can obtain medical clearance from foreign doctors who are not subject to Canadian assessments. Have you found similar issues to the ones that ICAO did, and has the government taken any action on them?
Not, from the top of my head, I don't recall investigations in which these issues were raised.
Thank you.
Thanks. Ms. Khalid, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today. I'll start by asking about quality and efficiency. Are you, as an organization, leveraging new technologies such as artificial intelligence in with respect to quality and delivery of service and efficiency in how you operate?
So finding efficiencies is definitely something that we're working hard on at the moment. With regard specifically to AI, we are currently in the evaluation phase. So we are looking at, what can the opportunities be to use AI. Right now, in the short term, we're looking at really sort of targeted uses. So, for instance, translation can be an example. Using it to produce report summaries can also be a potential option. As for other uses, it would probably be, sometime down the road where we're able to use it more extensively. Our processes that we have internally are already well, it's a well-oiled machine. We have this very, very good methodology that we use to conduct our investigations. It works well. And so we need to continue providing our investigators with the tools that they need to do their job. Recently, we created a new safety analysis tool, which is a tool that our investigators can use basically to analyze an occurrence to identify the findings of that occurrence. So it's a new tool that they are able to use, which makes the analysis more solid and also makes the data about occurrences all easily accessible from one place. So it's an example of modernization that we did recently. So we're continuously looking at opportunities to do things better.
I appreciate that safety analysis tool. I'd love to learn a little bit more about how that impacts your bottom line. So, budget 2025 requires you to reduce your spending by $4.4 million, if I'm correct. So, how do you plan on reducing those costs in terms of your operations? And I do want to know more, like how tools like the safety analysis tool impact your bottom line as an operation.
Just a clarification, we were reducing by 1.4 million by 28, 29.
So as James mentioned earlier, we are looking at various ways that we can gain some efficiencies in how to streamline our work. We want to improve our timelines for report publication because some reports, as you know, can take a lot of time to be published, and for that we have to remove bottlenecks, and we also have to find ways to streamline the work by providing our people with additional tools. Obviously, the budget reductions that we are faced with is another opportunity for us to work hard on finding those efficiencies for our people.
Do I still have no? Okay.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up right there on this one. We are going to question period in about 20 minutes. Check that out. Hit the notification to get aware of when that's happening in about 20 minutes. Anyhow, check back on the site. Thank you for checking out this committee investigation. They're always wild. Anyways, see you back here hopefully in about 20 minutes. We're out. Ciao for now.